Okay, well, listen up here.
All right. When? Tell me when to start.
She's on.
Okay.
Okay, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Hannah Miyamoto, and I have been observing events over since December, and I want to do a brief presentation about why I think things are really changing, and I think it's really an opportunity for us to take advantage of. And I'll talk about some of these I've been working on, something we've all been working on together. So the first to remember is what's past is prologue, which of course is William Shakespeare's The Tempest, and what it means is the past is what sets the future. What sets the present and the future. Over the last 6 weeks, well, if you didn't know, number one, the Commission of the Californians was formed on December 4. I'll talk about that. I'm going to give you just an example of one thing that's important. And I got something here that's going to get your attention really soon. There's an opinion poll analysis I want to go through, talk about 2 websites that have been developed, the effect of Trump's impeachment, the Republican takeover of the federal courts relating to California, and the growing potential for civil war and authoritarian rule in the United States. And here's what I'm going to get your attention. I got $10 here. I'd like to have someone tell me why it's important that we talk about the potential for civil war and authoritarian rule, and Marcus has to keep his mouth shut. Raise your hands if you think you can answer why that's significant to this discussion.
What was the question again? Say it again.
Why is it important we're going to talk about the growing potential for civil war and authoritarian rule?
Because we're in it.
The Civil War will lead directly to California independence.
Sorta. Wasn't quite what I had to say. I don't feel like I'm getting my 20 cents.
$5 though, right?
Maybe. Come on, somebody can tell me what they really think.
I don't think anybody knows.
Well, because we're still in that same arena that we were in the Civil War, that possibly and
No one else.
authoritarians.
No.
We are.
John?
John knows the answer.
I didn't hear the question, I'm sorry.
Why is it important we're going to talk about the growing potential for civil war and authoritarian rule? That's reported in The Guardian, Foreign Policy, and a whole bunch of other publications. No?
I'm sorry, reading that. It's not, the question's not there.
Nope. Well, yes, it is. Never mind. All right. Shankar, you win, but I will tell it to you this way. I'll lead you all to this yourselves. What is the most common thing you hear about in this relation to the question about California becoming independent? 1, 2, 3. It's going to lead to civil war. And if there's already going to be a civil war, then what's the problem with California becoming independent?
There isn't one.
No, right? It sounds to me like it's a good survival strategy
Hell yeah.
in the middle of an apocalypse
Right.
that we're not going to cause, but we certainly are going to have to deal with.
Yep.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Spend it all in one place.
No, everything leads to civil war. Trump gets impeached, civil war. California becomes independent, civil war.
Okay.
If Trump gets reelected, civil war.
It seems that way.
Loses the election, civil war.
Okay.
It all leads to civil war.
Well, maybe not.
All roads lead to Civil War.
All leads to right. So, okay. So if you didn't know, December 4, the governors of the state of California, Baja California and Baja California Sur, all met in San Diego to sign a memorandum of agreement to form a new commission of the Californias, which was kind of a surprise, frankly. Yes, very good. This got good press. This got good attention, and I know in the Latino newspapers. By the way, the Spanish newspapers. I don't know how much it got covered by the English press. But I think what was important was Governor Newsom's remarks, which are online, and you can read about them. And Governor Newsom was talking about. He said one thing. He said, despite how people are trying to divide us, the Californias, have this shared. I think the exact quote was, "Our economies, our histories, our conventions, our cultures are inseparable." And he means of the Californias, which I think is pretty exciting to think of. Our movement has evolved now into talking about reunifying the California Peninsula, the Californias, or Gran California, as a great man has described it as. Another topic. December 29, I released an analysis of polls that were taken before the 2017 inauguration of Trump. And it has to do with Marcus, frankly. Marcus was the guy who first dug this out. There are polls, we only really know one thing about public opinion regarding California independence, which is that polls were taken in just before Trump was inaugurated in early 2017. And they asked people in California, these are the ones that say that 32% of Californians support independence, things like that. But when you go deeper and deeper, you get better information. And particularly, we find out that 9 million Californians, according to that poll, support independence, if it can be done nonviolently. And 6 million are undecided. And that's, and don't forget, thank you, and don't forget too, there are 39 million men, women, and children in California, but there are about 30 million adults in California. So if you've got 15 million, that's already 15%. And that's 50% right there. That's a majority. My position is that if we get to about 20 million supporting, we're out. There's no power in the world that's basically going to hold us out, keep us out. It's all about public opinion. We got to get from 9 million to 20 million. We can do this if the events require that. Also, by the way, people don't really understand how much people under age 40 to 45 are critical to this movement. The Reuters poll came up with numbers as high as 49% for people under 40 supporting California independence. That's 49%. That's basically a majority already. And it's only in the older groups that you get much more reluctance. Another piece. On December 18, the U.S. House of Representatives voted to impeach Donald Trump. You can all cheer.
Yay.
But what's important at the time was 57% of Californians support not only impeachment of Donald Trump, but his removal. And 13% are not sure or think it's maybe too soon. Together, that's 70%. Yeah. 13%. So that's a total of 70%. 70% are either open to the idea of kicking him out or want him out. And what's important, if you if you look, it was that the comments that were made before that impeachment vote came. Particularly, what I thought was important was Adam Schiff, Democrat of California, also chair of the House Judiciary Committee, who warned that failing to stop Trump would endanger the integrity of the 2020 election. Then there's the federal courts. December 19, Ian Millhiser reported in Vox. There's quite a few other articles about this, but this is the most recent one. Vox, if you watch MSNBC, Ezra Klein, he shows up a lot on MSNBC. He worked elsewhere, but now he's in charge of Vox. And Vox has had some amazingly good articles about politics in this country and the law. And Trump has now appointed 1 in 4 federal appellate judges. And not only that, but Trump is just 2 judges away from flipping the Ninth Circuit.
That's right.
He's already flipped the
That's right.
second and the third. Now
That's right.
that's right.
It's over for us.
It will be over.
Yeah.
Well, and specifically, I know a lot of people don't understand maybe what the federal courts really do, but I think it's important to realize that certain issues are really important for federal courts. One of them is environmental issues regarding everything from fracking to offshore drilling to forestry management, etc. Immigration and human rights, which of course includes women's rights, and minority rights are also instrumental, and then also conflicts with state laws. So, and I will say offhand that one of the problems here, too, I'm speaking as a lawyer now, that it's not so much that Trump is appointing federal judges. It's the kind of people he's appointing. He's appointing biased, potentially corrupt, people with very low qualifications or none. There's such a string now of people who have been ruled to be unqualified by the American Bar Association. And so the result is they no longer the White House has declared they're no longer listening to the American Bar Association because the American Bar Association is too biased to suggest who would be a good judge for the federal court systems. they also, on top of everything else, they're deliberately getting people in their 40s because they do not want to let go of their power after they have it, regardless of their actual abilities or qualities as judges. Then there's another one. So these are some of the things I think have transformed our movement just the last 6 weeks. One, we now have the Congress saying that whether the election results are going to be even valid in 2020 is doubtful. Because of foreign interference, because of voter suppression and election fraud in other states. And I want to point out to you that statehood ultimately means, right, that Californians have to follow laws passed by representatives in other states. If those elections are not valid, then we're fundamentally submitting to a government that itself is not valid. And also, if the elected officials ignore their oath of office to the point where they do not uphold the United States Constitution and they let the federal laws be unenforced, what obligation does California have to remain a state if the United States itself is false and fake? Are we living in a fake democracy or a fake country?
Yes.
We are.
Can I get my $10?
Vote for yay.
And then we also just mentioned the organizing right-wing extremists are actually organizing for civil war. This article here, this is, if you didn't know, like right now, in Virginia, Democrats won in Virginia, right? So they won the governorship and that sort of thing. That state's turning blue. And so southeast, rural, whatever, southern Virginia and also western Virginia, they're all like convinced that, well, actually the governor has talked about stricter gun regulations. Anyways, the gun rights movement is turning into a secession or insurrectionary movement. And radicals, right-wing radicals, some extremists, I should say, right-wing extremists are coming from literally around the country to get involved in this thing. People are talking about having another Charlottesville, but this one not over Trump or racism, but over guns. And another word that I've just heard recently is called accelerationism. It's very disturbing. It's the idea that the right wing is telling themselves that a civil war would be great because it would allow them to create the all-white, the white nationalist, Christian, non-Jewish homeland that they have all dreamed of. And in other words, that's diametrically opposed to our vision of what we want to live in. They even use the rise, by the way, of Michael Bloomberg because he's Jewish and he's anti-guns. And he's a Democrat, they say. Okay. Well, it goes to show how broad the trend is. Okay. So this is why I'm going to propose that we have missed our chance to get an independence ballot on the ballot. Independence referendum on the ballot in 2020. But we still have 2022 ahead of us. And that's also going to be the year that the governor is up for election. And I'm not saying that Governor Newsom should go anywhere, but I have no idea also where he wants to go. If he's probably going to seek re-election, he may seek higher office. It's his decision. So, oh yeah, this, by the way, this tweet, this is just another little symbol of this. Marcus found this. Lindsay Ellis has something like 20-some thousand followers on Twitter. And her reaction to the Iran war was, on a related note, can we go ahead and maybe explore CALEXIT, guys? Like, I think it's time for CALEXIT. January 3, 2020.
That's 220,000.
220,000 followers.
And that was 2 days ago she said that, and it was universally liked.
Yeah, 2,500 likes, 100 retweets.
I don't know who she is, but she kicks ass.
Yeah, I assume she's Californian.
Oh, yeah. Yes, she is.
But actually, that actually goes to show how many people are actually on our side and just need a little more push
Right.
to get involved and become active.
Right.
So we should always think about this. There are 9 million supporters, at least, living amongst us.
Yeah.
We just have to get them active and empowered. Part of it is just by telling them that, hey, there are 9 million people thinking just like you. It's time to leave. So I'm going to talk about 2 new websites and the 2022 election. The first, if you didn't know, I'm very proud. It's called California Liberation Movement. It's a WordPress website I just started. It's bilingual, and its purpose is designed quite simply to get email addresses. It also has the ability to get donations. And it's exciting because it's called the Liberation Movement specifically because if you hadn't been at the presentation I gave last month, under international law, secession movements are considered illegal. It's not legal for other states to support another state to break up against its whatever. But liberation movements are the exception to that. And California was invaded in 1846. And so on and so on and so on. So by emphasizing the actual history of California as an independent country, we can argue that it's a liberation movement, and therefore it's entirely appropriate for the U.S. allies, Great Britain, France, Germany, Japan, Canada, Mexico, to support the breakup or division of California, and perhaps the development of a new federation. And then, as I said, the Liberation Movement is going to be launched by an internet advertising campaign, which we're going to start funding. But the idea is to try to get money from the people who join and thus, reach more and more people because there's 9 million people to get to, at least 9 million. The other one is Your California Today. This is a news website. Officially, it's the news offshoot, but the idea is to feature news, opinions, and features to emphasize California and de-emphasize the New York and Washington, D.C. Focus of our national media. I never want to criticize MSNBC too much, but let's face it, they're really good at telling us what's going on in New York and Washington and very poor at telling us what's going on anywhere else in the world, even in foreign countries. There's lots happening. Just today, 80,000 people demonstrated for independence of Scotland in Glasgow.
Right on. Woo! Right on.
And so these are the kind of stories. Also, by the way, Catalonia, the European Parliament agreed to accept the delegates from Catalonia
Right on.
as independents from Spain. So these are the kind of important stories that are relevant to our struggle and which are not being covered by the media. And I want to emphasize that I believe that we can get at least 2 million regular viewers of this website with enough advertising, enough content. We got 2 million regular viewers. I'll go into logic someday about how I think that's 2 million is a good number, but that would be enormous. That would be enough to make this movement one of the most important power centers in the state of California. And I want to emphasize that Your California Today, my goal in life is to become the editor of it and the technician behind it and maybe the accountant. And everybody else come up with because these are all thankless jobs that someone should do. And then other people can submit content so that we have lots and lots and lots of content, and it's not just my personal website.
So it's all of our websites.
It's all our websites. I've sent an email out that talked about how you could just literally grab stuff from other people's websites and say, you should make this in an article. Because in many cases, there's lines to draw, obviously with copyright's an issue, but many times somebody would like nothing more than you to take stuff off of their website and put it on your website as long as you give them credit for it.
It's not us, not me.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And looks like we're running out of power. So there you go. Okay, so conclusion, last 6 weeks have been dynamic. And maybe we're going to look back and say this was an important, critical 6 weeks. we should be looking at this rise of civil war and authoritarianism as causing California independence to become a necessity. Not just, before we all even argue like, well, California could become independent. It would be great if California were independent, right? We can start arguing that California has to become independent if it's going to survive as the way we want to, as a place we want to live in. Our first goal should be finding those 9 million existing California independent supporters. It's probably now more like 12 million. It's higher than that. It's at least 9 million. We need to find them. We need to get them connected. We need to find out their email addresses. We need to tell them they can get involved. And lastly, we need to realize that we're actually let's face it. Power is getting people to listen to you and agree and wanting to do what you want them to do, right? It's not about, we think of power like authority. We confuse it. Power is about that. And we need to seek real power. And the way to do it is by presenting the people with a news media that they can't get anywhere else, at least not now. And don't forget that what I like to point out is one of the two things I want to emphasize by closing up by saying here. In California, we have problems with our media. It's so focused on individual towns and communities, if you ever noticed that, right? Largest news publication in this state is probably the Los Angeles Times. But the Los Angeles Times doesn't even tell us what's going on in San Diego, even though the same company owns both newspapers, right? All the television and radio stations are the same way. Even state public radio is divided up by different markets. Right, my San Diego station is solely focused on San Diego. The LA public radio station is Pacifica. There's no state media in this California, and that's why this market is wide open for us, and we just have to give them again, we don't have to be the latest and greatest, and we can develop on growing. Eventually, we can become a genuine news source and really become a power. And that's it. So you now know about the websites and you know that the plan, and if you don't agree, I always want you to know there's a theory behind it, and then you can go. Yes, Daniel.
Yes, have you ever thought of doing a printed newspaper reflecting the website itself so that we could become, the California newspaper for all of California, which...
Well, the simple answer to that is printed news is really going down the drain. I could still sort of see a free paper being developed by maybe a weekly or a monthly.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because there is a market. But yeah, daily newspapers are in real trouble because they're generally viewed as just cash cows that the owners are trying to get the last few nickels out of that they can. But the website I showed you, by the way, if you can find it on your cell phone, you'll see it. It's beautiful. It automatically makes itself into something you could look on a cell phone, so people can read this on their TV, and they can read it on their cell phone when they're traveling, etc. Thanks. All right, I think we got to wrap it up. Thank you very much.